Hey everyone, undergrad Steve here, and I just wanted to make a quick video talking about what's going to happen next, what we learned from the past, and what's currently going on inside the game and inside the development team. I think w- this has Act 2 has been received much worse than Act 1, and there are some key issues that I really want to address and I really want to talk about so that you guys can all understand what has happened and what we're going to make sure how we're going to make sure these are going to be fixed. So, let's start by looking at what we learned from College Kings Act 2 Part 3. So, first of all, the in all of our feedback surveys, which are all read plenty of times by, most team members, we look at, did you feel that the update lived up to your expectations? That's the first question we ask. And it might be worth changing that question in the future, because sometimes it's hard to grasp what that even means. But for now, very important that we get some kind of, statistical rating on how well an update did. And we can really see it here that zero point 0.7 did pretty good, zero point 0.8 and zero point 0.9 were less than 50%, and zero point 0.10 then spiked up again. So basically what it's saying was, and for zero point 0.6, by the way, this was at 95%. So for Act 1 it was much higher than Act 2, and really zero point 0.8 and zero point 0.9 were just subpar updates, and zero point 0.10 has gotten better again, but it doesn't yet have the quiet magic that Act 1 had. So some of the feedback that really came up a lot was update was rushed or too short. There were a lot of bugs, especially on release, and simpler wasn't really used. So the update was rushed and too short usually comes down to the lack of time that we have. Making a big update in a month is really, really difficult. And when other things go wrong, and we can go a bit more into what did go wrong, it really makes it hard to make the update as good as we can because people are expecting it to be on some kind of standard. There were a lot of bugs always on release day, and we had trouble with the launching side, trouble with patching stalling, trouble with the uploading, trouble with the downloading, bugs on the development side, bugs on the installing side. There were so many issues, and especially when people were loading saves, RenPy saves are quite complicated to work with, and people would have one variable different, and it would crash the whole game. That's really hard to test for, but it's still our job to test for it, and we are definitely not doing a good enough job of that. And in Act 2, we didn't nail any of the launches, and the simpler app was simply just rushed. We didn't add content quickly enough, and with the Act 2 Steam release, which we also uploaded to Patreon just a couple days ago, that's kind of where we did a lot of the amendments. We, fixed a lot of the bugs and simpler. Um, but that's still, that needs to be done on release day. That can't be done, 3 weeks afterwards. People shouldn't be waiting that long, and you guys shouldn't be waiting that long. So I completely agree with that. All of these things are issues that we face and issues that we didn't address well. Now, what this means is that since all of these issues were caused by crunch time, is that Act 3, Part 1 will now be delayed to early July. So instead of late June, it's coming early July. This does not make a big difference. It'll only be a couple of weeks of time, but it will make a big difference for us because those couple of extra weeks will be used for amending Act 2, for making sure the release dates are smoother, for increasing workflow and improving them and hiring the right people and getting everything in order so that we can make a better update, a bigger update than before, and making sure that Act 3 Part 1 is wowing you again, right? We want that wow factor back that College Kings used to have. And I want to make sure that my influence is felt again much stronger than maybe in Act 2. So, why we made the decision to push back? Updates should not feel rushed. Allow us time to revamp the plot. Allow us time to properly beta test. I've said all of these, and this is really what comes out of your guys' feedback. we listen and we read everything. I read everything personally, and the whole team is like, we're crushed, when we read negative feedback, when we spend so much work. Even an update that doesn't go well, that's not laziness. Like when zero point 0.8 or zero point 0.9 or 0.10, when something doesn't go well, it's not that the team is lazy. It's that time constraints and other problems and, misguided management from me, well done me, kind of leads to stuff where we have, some kind of crisis or some kind of crunch time. And the entire team still puts everything into it. And then seeing, you guys not like it is obviously soul crushing for all of us. So we want to make sure this doesn't happen with the next update. We want to make sure we can really properly adjust the plot, and I will go into in a second what that actually means, and make sure we properly beta test, make sure we can set up our workflows better, and really understand what makes what makes an update good and what makes an update bad. Um, and there were three things that really make Act 2 as a whole kind of problematic. We had no overarching storyline like in Act 1. So in Act 1, very interestingly, there was this whole storyline set up of MC doesn't really want to fight, and he gets put in his life where, threats are everything and fighting is everything, and he needs to decide, does he even want to join a frat? Is that really the life path he wants to go? But it seems like all the girls are attached to that. And that was the overarching narrative of Act 1. And a lot of MC's internal conflict, which made him a flawed and relatable character, surrounded that. Now, when MC chose the frat life, that conflict was resolved. And this was honestly just me not realizing that the conflict I had set up had been resolved with that decision, and not putting one more like inner conflict for MC in. And now in Act 2, there was no inner conflict for MC. He was like an empty shell, and he was experiencing some cool events and stuff, but he didn't have much inner conflict, and that's really not okay. That's not how you build a good story, and that's what made Act 2 feel so empty as a whole. There was no overarching thing. It was just, scenes after scenes just kind of loosely connected together, but nothing really happening, nothing really tying it in. And MC really had no strong emotions, and that's sad to see, because that's what made Act 1, in my opinion at least, so goddamn good, because it was very real and authentic, and you could see a really deep side of MC, and you couldn't see that at all in Act 2. The second problem we had was a high writing and plot team turnover. So I started writing everything by myself, and in zero point 0.5, so this was end of November, or start of December or something. um, we hired a writer to help me out. So we did 50-50. She was really good. And she, however, decided to, pursue another career. I think she wants to become an actress. And she decided to quit. And that was, totally fine of her to do. And I wish her all the best. But it really wasn't good for us, We had this great writer and she quit. And, we had to find new writers. But trying to find a writer for a game that's already kind of halfway written, and halfway, not as in college halfway done, but there's already a big chunk written. um don't worry, there's more acts coming, many more acts coming, but there's already a fair chunk written, so the writer needs to adjust to the style already adjusted. And then, it's an adult game and stuff. Really quite difficult, at least in the situation it was. And we weren't as big as we are now. So struggling with that. We hired two new writers, one here, one there, and both didn't really turn out. And they wrote a lot of zero point 0.8 and 0.9. And now we found our current writer at the end of zero point 0.9, and he did all of 0.10. And Lucius is his name, and I think he's really fantastic, and he's really getting a lot better and a lot more adjusted, and he will get even better just as time goes on, because he's a quick learner. But I will just let you know, like, this is some of the stuff you might not be able to see behind the scenes. Like, we had basically four different writers in the entirety of Act 2. Um, and that's just because, what do you do if your writer quits and you need a new writer? And the people don't work out and you just have to keep changing. Like, it's a very difficult situation. And then we did not have enough transcribers. Transcribing is a very tough job, and it requires a very certain kind of skill set. And we keep putting out ads on Discord for paid transcription roles, and a lot of the people that apply, um, it just takes a lot of work and dedication to kind of be able to do that. And those that are transcribers for us, I'm so grateful for what they do. It's a very it's a mix of, coding and describing the renders, and that is quite a tough job, and stuff like that not being there, that leads to, bugs, that leads to delays, and because the renderers need the transcribers. So everything kind of bases around them, and having them missing is a big problem for everyone in the workflow and delays everything else. So overall, you have these three problems that really made Act 2 really hard to bear with and create a lot of not just bugs, but plot holes and bad writing and all of that. And that's all mismanagement at the end of the day. That this is all on me. I didn't see that there was no overarching storyline, that it was completed out of Act 1. I didn't realize, we need to do a better job of hiring writers. I need to have writers as backups. I need to have some kind of idea what I do if, my writer ends up quitting. And I did not make the right measurements to get enough transcribers. So this is my fault. And this is why Act 2 had some problems. And this is what I want to work on, what we want to work on as a team. Now, as a patron, you definitely can expect to see a lot of benefits this month, because we know you guys are mainly subscribed because you want to get the game every month, and I know that this month this is not going to happen. But trust me, we're going to try and make up for it as best as we can. We're going to do a development live stream for patrons. We're going to do a Patreon Q&A. We're going to release Act 1 and Act 2 walkthrough on Patreon this month. We're going to do gameplay polls, exclusive renders, and update posts, and we're just going to make sure that you guys get enough content to really be okay with not getting released this month. I'm terribly sorry that, for those people that are like, oh my god, I want to play the new update in June, and it's coming out in July, and I understand that that's a difficult thing, but I think, we want to make sure that, part 1 of Act 3 is going to be an absolute banger update, and we want to make sure we have enough time to do that. So when this is just for next month, but now we're coming into the future. For July, we really want to have a fully custom game launcher. We've been working on it for a while now, and it should be ready for the next update. That means there's less downloading required. It'll update automatically. If you set it to that, the downloads will be much faster. It'll be much easier to use, and you won't have to. There won't be any of the installations issues with the patches and everything. Everything will just come through automatically, so you can expect a fully custom game launcher for the next update. And we're also gonna start working on voice acted sex scenes once we reach that 2,500 Patreon goal. I know we've gotten past it once, but we've gone down since again. That's kind of what happens at the end of the month. At the start of the month, you always lose a bunch, and then you gain them back. And once we're kind of back above that, we're gonna start working on voice acted sex scenes, for new sex scenes, and maybe improving some old ones. Um, yeah, and then overall, in conclusion, what's next for CK? Guys, I want you to know that development team, we've gone through a lot, and we've gone through a lot of turnover and changes and everything, but you can believe me, we're stronger than ever. We're setting up after every update. We have a huge development meeting, and we have weekly meetings besides that are a bit smaller, to really make sure we make the most out of the feedback we get. We read all of your feedback. We have people compiling the feedback from Discord, from Patreon comments. Like, we really care that you guys love this game. Trust me, I care so fucking much. And it's so important to me that we're going to make the most out of this. We're going to make this the most exciting game. Um, the most exciting adult visual novels that you can play out there. And, we're going to be learning from our mistakes, and a lot of Act 2 was management issues, and management, that's me. There were problems from me, I not doing enough in plot, like thinking that I needed to be, more on the whole of College Kings, more working on the whole, and I was less involved directly in the story creation. And that was a mistake. I went back for 0.10, and I'm much more back for Act 3 as well. And I didn't do a good job of realizing where I am needed. I did stuff that was less of a priority. We want to be, you know, I- guys. I'm a 20-year-old, and I think this is a very, this project is. I love College Kings, and I love this project, and I love your guys' support. And I want to grow it so badly that, of course, sometimes, mistakes happen. We expand too fast, or we expand too slow, or we hire the wrong people, or we make this. I want you to know that, it's not, an act of ill intent or laziness. It's a mistake in judgment. And I think the important thing you have to do is learn from your mistakes. And we're going to be trying to do as much of that as we can. Your feedback is really what guides us. And that's why 100% of the funding is still going directly into development. You know, all the money we make goes into the team we hire, the launcher, the assets we buy, the marketing for it. Everything you see around College Kings, that's all coming from the Patreon. And the Patreon is going directly into that. We're not just, storing all of it and, putting it aside. No, it's all going directly into development. And that's what I value, that's what we value as a team. So thank you so much for your support, and thank you so much for going through this entire video. Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know your thoughts on this. I hope I explained kind of our reasoning behind it, and I hope you have a fantastic day.